Pro-life Spiderman. You guys ever heard of him? Welcome to the Seth Gruber Show today. We have pro-life Spiderman joining us in just 1 second. Maison DesChamps, you may have heard of him. He has been a viral figure for the last year or so in the culture. People can't help but talk about him and cover him because the guy's climbing skyscrapers with no protection or ropes or like anything, like free soloing skyscrapers for the babies, for unborn babies, to help moms choose life, to support moms, to save babies from the butchery of abortion. He's a friend. I consider him an ally, and he's one of the most unique, awesome men in the pro-life movement today. And he has been going after abortionists, pedophiles, and the abortion industrial complex, and they do not like a young man with this kind of courage exposing their deeds of darkness. He's going to share all about his story and testimony. He's a real gift. You're really going to enjoy this conversation. He's a straight shooter, and we need more men like him in the fight for life. Buckle up, you're in for a treat. I'm Seth Gruber, and this is The Seth Gruber Show. Pro-life Spider-Man. Mason, brother, finally, it's about time I get you on the show. Thanks for making time, bro. So, you've been up to a lot, okay? And we're going to be in an event together, I think, in June in Las Vegas. But, dude, you've been crushing it. You've been going viral. I think everyone listening to this probably knows who you are and what you're up to now. But you climb skyscrapers and tall buildings to raise awareness about the evils of abortion in America, and to raise funds for women facing unplanned pregnancies, just to tell them, don't let money or daunting, scary circumstances prevent you from embracing life. We're going to rally around you. You're kind of one of the most unique people I've ever met, and I'm honored to call you a friend. Brother, what caused you to throw your hat in to this battle? When did you kind of decide I'm gonna like climb buildings? I'm gonna do whatever I can in my skill set to save babies. Was there an event? Because everyone wants to know who the heck pro-life Spider-Man is. You're like the most unique, interesting guy, Mason. Everyone's like, who is this guy? I want people listening to kind of hear your heart a little bit.
Yeah, I guess unique is the right word to use. But it all started a couple years ago. I had always been pro-life, but I had never done anything for the pro-life movement or to really stand for life other than, an occasional post online here and there. But I was sitting at home one day, scrolling on my phone, when I saw a picture of a dead baby. And normally you see pictures of babies, they have bows on their heads and they're smiling. But this one sat in a Ziploc container with a smashed skull and one eye left open. She was killed during the Justice for the Five event. And so I seen this picture, and I guess the way I felt can only be summed up with James chapter 1, verse 23, and I'm going to butcher this, but it says, those who are hearers and not doers of the word are like those who look at themselves in the mirror, walk away, and immediately forget who they were. Because, here I am confronted with this evil, but what's next? Am I going to do something about it? Because this isn't just like any other political issue where, oh yeah, that's bad, we shouldn't do it. This is the murdering of children. That's yep. So to say we're pro-life is a ginormous claim. So if we're going to use those words, if we're going to say that, yeah, abortion is murder, we should stand up and do something about it. And at the time, I was in college, the climber, I had no money. Well, I still don't have any money, but I'm like, how do I make a difference? And back in the day, in the 90s and the early 2000s, there was this guy named Alain Robert. He's known as the French Spider-Man. And he would go around the country, around the world, really, and climb skyscrapers. And every once in a while, he would pick some sort of political cause. So in 2008, he had climbed the New York Times building and hung up all these climate change banners. And the New York Times building is pretty funny because it's a particularly easy building to climb. Like, I think almost anybody who has any amount of courage could pull it off. It's really nothing but a ladder. So I looked at that building and I said, well, I could do that.
Right.
And I started plotting. And it's hilarious because I knew that I was going to need some funding for drone pilots and photographers and plane tickets and whatnot. So I started asking all of the different like pro-life organizations if they might want to fund it. And of course, it was no, 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 no. And I guess the only way I can describe how I felt was like a Nigerian prince. You know, like, you donate money to me and I'll climb these skyscrapers and raise all this money for the pro-life movement. And it is a ridiculous idea. And I guess it was sort of a ridiculous idea to ask for funding in hindsight.
That's awesome, Mason. And babies have been saved. I mean, obviously, you should choose life, mother, because you're a mother and it's a baby. You shouldn't only choose life because some pro-lifers came around and said, we'll pay for your medical bills. But hey, at the same time, if that's going to make a difference, why wouldn't we do that? If it's going to result in a baby not being ripped limb from limb, and your actions and your bravery and your courage and your work has saved lives, and it's pretty amazing. And next thing you know, national news coverage around you, and we'll talk about it a little bit here, right? About exactly how angry certain liberals get if you do that in Sin City. Isn't that right, Mason? Why don't you talk about that?
Oh, yeah. So basically, in February, I climbed the Sphere. It's like this big ball. It's a 300 feet tall with all sorts of lights on it. So the lights light up and it can make different designs. It kind of looks like it's a TV screen. And I knew it was going to be really a really good media stunt. The building itself isn't that hard. It's another one of those where I'm like, okay, I think anybody could really do this building. It's nothing more than a ladder. But being in Las Vegas and happening during the Super Bowl, I sort of saw it as like sort of this evil Knievel type classic Vegas stunt. You know, when he uh, jumped the fountain at Caesar's Palace, and I'm like, well, okay, this is going to be kind of cool. And it was funny because to build the Sphere, it requires construction workers who are using ropes and rappelling down. And so I knew a lot of the guys who had built it because they're all rock climbers. And I had messaged them before and I said, "Hey, do you think that this is something that would be climbable?" And they sent me videos of them like jumping all over it and climbing up and down. They said, "Absolutely." And so here I am, knowing that this building's climbable, and I go and we do the stunt. Everything goes well until we start dealing with the police. And the way that these buildings work is that there is no law that says you cannot climb a skyscraper. There are laws like in Detroit that say you cannot leash your pet alligator to a fire hydrant, but there's no law that says you cannot climb a skyscraper. So what you're working with is you're working around these trespassing laws. And in Vegas specifically, in order to be trespassed, you have to be read the statute, which means if you're someplace and they don't want you there, they can ask you to leave and you have to leave. But until they have read you the statute, you're not breaking the law. And basically, we climbed it, we get down, and the police chief was in the middle of a press conference when I started the climb. And so he announced to the world that I would be arrested for what? He never said, but he said that we would be arrested without investigation. So here I am sitting in the police car. We kept asking them, "Why are you detaining me? Why are we being detained?" No answer. 4 hours later, here I am. I have to use the restroom. They told me to pee myself. Um, yeah. I wasn't too happy, and I'm literally sitting in the back of the police car in handcuffs, and the police officer is debating me about abortion, which is kind of funny. He kept saying that it's a woman's right to choose and whatnot, and so
So
eventually,
you get off of the Sphere, Mason. You climb down from this thing, and within minutes of you being handcuffed and put in the back of a police car, you're saying that the police chief or officers are trying to debate you on abortion.
Yeah.
But your political views and the reason that you climbed this fear, I'm sure, clearly has nothing to do with why you were arrested, right?
Yeah. So they ended up charging us like 4 hours later with felony destruction of property up to $100,000. The police report says something along the lines of I was climbing and stomping out lights as I was climbing, like I was Johnny Cash at the Grand Ole Opry or something like that. Um, they also charged us with
Did you break anything?
No. It would be hard to break something on that building. They
I'd
always
imagine.
overbuild so that the wind doesn't affect it. So nothing was broken.
And if I
And
recall seeing the video, Mason, because for you guys listening, Mason and I have some friends that were arrested and handcuffed as well, on the public sidewalk, Mason, right? For pointing, what was their sin? They were pointing an iPhone at you from a
yeah,
public
they're
sidewalk, recording you, and they were handcuffed and manhandled, and their phones were thrown on the ground and taken as well. Very interesting. But I remember watching the video of you starting this climb of the Sphere in Las Vegas, and correct me if I'm wrong, bro, but you just walked up, meaning you were able to access the Sphere from the public sidewalk. Meaning you didn't trespass and jump a gate in order to start climbing the Sphere. Am I right?
yeah, I stepped over like a flower garden or something like that,
Okay.
and it was all within the laws. And yeah, they charged us with felony destruction of property and felony conspiracy. Uh, One of the security guards that was there later went on to my Instagram and started cursing God and Jesus Christ.
Whoa.
So it's very clear their motives. I think the reason why the police chief was so willing to go along with this was for months they were bragging about how good the security was, and they were a little offended that me, I guess people at home can't see how big I am, but I'm a 120-pound little white kid. I think they were mad that I breached their security so quickly.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh.
but
So
that's never.
they take you to prison or jail or whatever. You're in the back of a police car, so pick up from there.
Yeah, and then I get there, and our friends AJ and Lori are there as well, which I've always wanted to go to jail with friends, just because you get lonely in there. Uh, so that was a cool experience to be in jail with friends. But I felt terrible, especially considering I got out a day and a half before them, and it broke my heart because the captain's supposed to go down with their ships, and my last words to them was, "Hey, call this bondsman. He's a Christian bondsman. He said he'll get us all out. He loves what I was doing, and here I am getting out. Meanwhile, these guys who didn't even touch the sphere, they had nothing to do with it. They were just there praying and holding a phone camera. Here they are sitting in jail longer than me. Broke my heart. There's actually a movie you've probably seen it. Have you ever seen Lonely Are the Brave?
I don't know.
Kirk Douglas,
Okay.
black and white movie, but he broke into jail. He got himself arrested to go visit his friend, and that's how I felt when they let me out. I'm like, dang, maybe I should get back in there.
Wow. Wow. So
um,
Mason, you've climbed how many skyscrapers around America have you climbed now for the babies?
this was the ninth one, yeah.
Wow, wow. And so a lot of people have criticized you for breaking laws, and police officers sometimes arrest you when you get to the top, depending on the building. Talk about some of these experiences, and like, is any of your actions actually illegal? Meaning, are you actually breaking any laws? And have they
You
ever
know,
held you in prison before, in jail?
yeah, the longest I've been put in jail is 30 hours of solitary confinement. Um, so I'm usually let out, and they either drop the charges or I go to court. That said, just to touch on this issue, when I started this, I had no idea that it was a legal loophole. I looked at that dead baby and I thought to myself, I need to do something and whatever I can to save these children from certain death. And so when I went and I climbed the Salesforce Tower, I thought I was going to go to jail for life, if I'm being honest with you. I was burning the ships behind me. And I'm on the more radical end of the pro-life movement, I guess. I'm a big supporter of things like Operation Rescue, where they would go and do sit-ins and get beaten by the police and arrested. And the reason why I support that is simply because if someone stole your child, let's say your neighbor, and they took your child and was drowning them in his pool, what would you do to stop him from doing that? The Bible says, love our neighbor as ourselves. So if we were willing to go to those lengths to save our own children, what lengths are we willing to go to save the children of God who are being slaughtered in the womb? And again, I don't think we should do evil so that good may come. I want to be very clear on that. But uh, on the front of every abortion clinic, there's a sign, one that says, thou shalt not kill and thou shalt not trespass. And you have to decide which one you're willing to follow. Um, Randall Randall Terry, that was his quote, but they started the largest civil disobedience movement in all time, and he hates that word. He hates saying civil disobedience because at the end of the day, I truly believe that it's biblical obedience. The Bible says, "Rescue those who are being led into death; hold back those who are stumbling to the slaughter." And it's just like Gideon in Judges. I know you talk about Gideon all the time, but he didn't tell Gideon to go into the city and change the hearts and minds. He said, go in and tear down these idols. And, every time I watch a woman walk past me while I'm sidewalk counseling, I honestly feel a little guilty for not doing more. I really do. And you're seeing people like Lauren Handy. She just got sentenced to 4 years in prison. And I hate when people praise me for the lengths I'm willing to go through because she's a real hero. She was willing to block the doors of the abortion clinic and do a sit-in, and now she's serving 4 years of her life for it.
We'd like to thank our sponsor of the Seth Gruber Show, Every Life Diaper Company. This is so mindlessly easy, guys. If you don't do this, I don't know if you'll ever be willing to end abortion. Like, I can't think of something easier to do. Don't buy diapers from pro-abortion diaper companies. How about that? Oh, and all of the major diaper companies in America support the abortion industry. Go to everylifediaper.com, everylife.com. Promo code Seth10 for 10% off your first order. If you've got kids, if you've got grandkids, right? What about your church nursery? What about all the diapers your church buys? What about your local pregnancy center? Where are they getting their diapers from? Everylife.com, because you can't rebuild a culture of life by funding a culture of death. And this is the only diaper company that is pro-life unapologetically and gives some of their profits back to pregnancy resource centers and donates diapers to pro-life causes. Everylife.com, promo code Seth10, Seth10 for 10% off your first order. And to let them know that we sent you, send this to your church pregnancy center and your kids and your grandkids. Thank you, Every Life, for being the sponsor of the Seth Gruber Show. Yep, that's right. Yeah, Mason, that was a powerful and prophetic word. And if the pastors of America were willing to speak with as much theological and political clarity as you just did, I think America would look a lot different.
What makes me so mad about it is I'll get so much criticism from these pastors, right? And I want to work with the churches. I really do. I mean, I'm a Christian. That's my goal. I don't really believe in trying to convince the left that, abortion's wrong. I look at the quote from Samuel Adams. He says, "It does not take a majority to prevail. It takes a small, tireless, and irate minority." And so who is that? That's the church. But I can't help but cringe sometimes when pastors who will praise men like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, like, look how heroic he was and how awesome of a Christian he was. They'll praise him, yet condemn me. And I'm like, that guy tried to kill Hitler. I haven't tried to kill anybody. Like, where are you finding grounds to praise him and oppose what I do? I don't see the consistency there.
Oh, Mason, that's why I love you, bro. That's why our whole team loves you. You have such a simple way of putting things, and it cuts through a lot of, frankly, the linguistic crap. And
I grew up eating
fluff.
squirrel.
Yeah, the fluff.
I'm a redneck. Like, I grew up eating squirrel. There's no fluff here.
But it's a great point you just made. It really is. And I've made the point before too about the pastors who will praise Bonhoeffer and tell people to go read my buddy Eric Metaxas's book on Bonhoeffer. And then they'll criticize and critique men like me and men like you for the kind of language we use in regards to the killing of babies and awakening the church to end abortion. And it's like, do you understand why this guy was killed? Mason's climbing a building, breaking no laws, so that many eyes on social media will see and maybe change their views on abortion and support life. Bonhoeffer tried to murder the chancellor of Germany, and you praise him from your pulpits in your church. It's a great point, Mason.
Yeah, yeah. And, a lot of these pastors, they'll try to quote Romans 13 to say, oh, that I'm doing something terribly wrong. And I always ask them, I'm like, that like Paul, the writer of Romans 13, we believe he wrote it in a jail cell. And then later, Paul was beheaded for crimes against the state. Like, what crimes against the state have I committed? I don't know. Maybe destruction of property and conspiracy. We'll see if they behead me in Las Vegas for that. But it's truly, I believe that the church is complicit in what's happening right now. I'm watching them tease and make fun of these Palestinian protesters, and although I completely disagree with much of their tactics, I can't help but see these pastors and say, if you had half the faith that these people have, half the willingness to sacrifice what these people are willing to sacrifice, but into something that's truthful, like life, because we know what these people are doing is wrong, but if you had half their work ethic, we could end abortion very, very quickly, because you're already seeing what these people are doing affect our policy. I mean, Joe Biden just the other day, he denied weapons to Israel. And, really, there's 5 things in every righteous revolution in human history that have worked to build this social tension to end this politically. And one of them is aggressive actions. It's doing sit-ins, calling out our politicians, whether that's with bullhorns or to their face. We have to be doing these things, yet our church is not. They're sheltering themselves, and I think it's a shame.
Mason, once again, well said. Brother, share some of the kind of just the fruit and awesome testimonies that maybe God has worked through you through your last 9 climbs, whether that was a mom, a baby, a testimony sent to you through social media. Why don't you bless the listeners with a story or two, just to encourage everyone that like you can make a difference and find a way to use your skill sets and giftings like Mason in this fight.
Yeah, so I guess I tell the story quite often, but when I became a Christian, we were reading the book of Acts in church. And I saw the way that Paul had used the prison system to go around and share the gospel. And he never discriminated. It was anybody and everybody he met. He wanted to share the word with them. And I mean, the reason that was because they understood that without Christ, our souls are damned to hell. So they knew if they didn't share the gospel, that they were doing a disservice. Like I like what Ray Comfort talks about. Penn Jillette, he once said, he's a famous atheist, and he said, how much do you have to hate somebody to know the secret of eternal life and not share it, right? And so that's why these apostles were willing to go through such lengths. And he would share with the guards. He'd share with, his cellmates. And I looked at that and I said, when I get arrested, that's what I want to do. And so I climbed the Devon Tower in Oklahoma City, and it was funny because the police, they threw me in the police car all angrily for the cameras, and then they took me back to the police station, and they all started to come down and ask for autographs and selfies, and it was pretty hysterical. And I told them that I'd write them a good Yelp review if they brought me coffee, and they did. It was funny. They were really nice to me, and but eventually they had to throw me in the real jail cell. So they dragged me in there, and It was the dirtiest jail I've ever been to. I mean, there was feces on the ground and bugs everywhere. It was so dirty that I actually contracted sepsis. I almost died. It was wild. Thank God my brother is in medical school, because
Wow.
I sent him a photo, and normally he's like, rub some dirt on it, but he said, you need to go in right now. And so I went in, and thank God. But I get in this jail cell, and it's like the Crips on one side, Bloods on the other. It's just gangbangers, right? Face tattoos. And I'm like, how would Paul break the ice with these guys? I was
Wow.
scared. It's Crips, Bloods, little white kid. And as soon as they closed the door, luckily a guard came by and they wanted an autograph through the bars. So I signed an
Wow.
autograph. And now all of a sudden, these gangbangers are wondering, like, what did this little white kid do to get into this jail that these guards are asking autographs from him for? And so I told them, I'm climbing these skyscrapers. I told them about the pro-life movement, and they kind of propped me up as like the jail celebrity. It was pretty funny. But all the gang beef went out the window, and all they wanted to do was hear my stories. So I was only in there for 6 hours, and I preached as much gospel to them as I knew, told them why I was pro life. And they let me out again 6 hours later, and I went home and sitting in bed sick with sepsis when I got a call from Nathan Burning, the CEO of Let Them Live, and that's the charity I raise money for. And he said, Mason, you're never going to believe this, but a woman just called into our charity, said that her boyfriend met you in Oklahoma County Jail, and they want to cancel their abortion. So we were able to save a baby from a jail cell, which was pretty cool. Um, After that, I was kind of a little emboldened, and I said, "Throw me away. I don't really care, because if I can save a baby or save a soul in jail, then that's just as good as doing it out here, I guess."
Wow, Mason. I knew you'd share something incredible, but I remember when that happened, but I had forgotten all the details, and I'm so glad you just shared it all again. That's beautiful, man. Mason, I can't wait to see how God uses you next. But you have recently launched your own organization, I believe. I want you to talk about that in just 1 second. But before we wrap up, um, everyone listening, Mason is a true activist, right? And you can't just have the pregnancy resource centers. Listen, my mother was a director of one. You'll never hear me smearing a pregnancy center unless they're woke and compromised and whatever. But these are wonderful ministries. But that's not what's going to ultimately end abortion. You need different attacks and different ways to engage the culture. And that's one of them, okay? It's beautiful. But for too long, we've treated the protection of the unborn and the problem of abortion as merely in sort of the pregnancy center space, right? Or maybe this pro-life conference. Sometimes we're willing to even praise sidewalk counselors, though a lot of churches are uncomfortable with that. The people that stand outside abortion centers and plead for the lives of babies. But it also requires activism. You have to enrage the society, and you have to force the society and the culture to come to terms with what they tolerate. And so activism has always played a very important role in any social revolution and in any against any social evil. Mason is a true activist at heart. Mason, as we wind down, share a little bit about your recent activism and campaign against correct me if I'm wrong here, a pedophile abortionist?
Yeah, yeah, allegedly. So when I started my own org, I wanted to go after these abortion clinics and try to shut them down. Uh, to add on to what you were saying, if you have a rock in your shoe, you don't take painkillers. You take the rock out of your shoe. And so there's two paths. I think these pregnancy centers are amazing. I work with my local pregnancy center and volunteer for them. I think it's great. But at the same time, we do have to strive towards total victory, which means ending abortion and shutting down these abortion clinics once and for all. And so I started this campaign to go after our local abortionist, only to figure out that in 1998, he was charged with 7 counts of sexual assault against minors under the age of 14. I later found out, once I had acquired the unredacted court documents, that not only were these children under the age of 14. They were ages 6 and ages 9, and they were Dr. Levy's own daughters. And this is how corrupt, uh, really our abortion industrial complex is that rather than throwing this man into a wood chipper, let alone, or jail, they allowed him to take an Alford plea, reduce his charges down to child abuse and neglect, and for raping his own daughters, he received probation, which, mind you, I don't know how many years I'm on trial for this fear thing, and in the next month or so, I'm going to find out how much jail time I'm going to get for climbing the Chase Tower, and uh, here's a pedophile receiving probation. And so our campaign, we started going outside of all of the places he works. He works at UNLV. He works at the Women's Care Center, Sunrise Hospital. He's the chief of OBGYN at UMC Hospital in Las Vegas, right?
And this is
So
this is all Vegas. Everything you just named is the Vegas area.
all Las Vegas. Yep. And and so we have been outside of his places of business holding signs, basically saying that Dr. Levy is a pedophile. And he doesn't really like that. He texted me.
Wait, what?
Yeah. He sent a cease and desist to my mother. He's coming after me.
Whoa.
That is what happens when you go after evil. And
that's right. So Mason, let me be clear. He served no jail time or prison time. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
I don't know if he went to jail.
Where is the abortion industry, Mason? Why aren't they rallying around you? See, because why can't they set aside their differing opinions on the status of the preborn? Hey, Planned Parenthood, right? Remember how how much they got behind Believe All Women, Mason? Right?
Yeah.
How much Planned Parenthood and the liberals who support Planned Parenthood were all about tearing down Harvey Weinstein, and we got to believe all women, and we got to find out these predators who've been sexually molesting and assaulting people, and we need to have public lynchings. Essentially, we need to remove these people from polite society. Why isn't the abortion industry rallying behind you, Mason, and setting aside their differing opinions on abortion to remove a pedophile from having access to women's legs?
Yeah, because they want to murder children, and they'll do anything and everything that they can to protect child sacrifice. Yeah, I mean, UNLV, I found through public record that they had purchased copies of these court documents back in 2022. So they've known about this, the university, and they have refused to take appropriate action and fire Dr. Levy. The last thing you want your gynecologist to be is a pedophile, yet they're willing to compromise on that to protect child killing. And just the other day, so this is crazy, the Nevada State Medical Examiners Board, rather than revoking Dr. Adam Levy's medical license, they sent papers announcing their investigation into the doctor at our local pregnancy center in Las Vegas. So they're going to try to revoke the pregnancy center's medical license rather than this pedophile, almost as if it's like punishment for us trying to expose this abortion industry. I went through the paperwork. I saw the guy who's leading the investigation. Its name is Dr. Ahsan Chowdhury. Guess where he works, Seth? Guess where he works? UNLV, UMC Hospital. It almost seems that perhaps he's buddies with Dr. Adam Levy. And not only that, you dig deeper into public record, which I don't know if abortionists believe in public record, but they act like the world can't see what they're doing. Dr. Ahsan Chowdhury is giving campaign donations to the president of the Nevada State Medical Examiners Board. So what do you know? That when we come after his friends, they come after our friends. Yeah, these
Mason. Pro-life Spider-Man, dude. Pro-life Spider-Man. You were so cool. I hope you guys understand the important role that people like Mason play in this fight. Very few people who call themselves pro-life are willing to do the kind of uncomfortable public work and public activism that Mason is willing to do and is continuing to do to expose evil, to educate the public, to, as we say at the White Rose, Mason, prick the collective conscience of the culture, awaken their moral intuitions, and for the church to reawaken their spiritual intuitions to this fight and this evil. Mason, you're doing yeoman's work. You're doing the Lord's work. We're so grateful for you, bro. Hey, where can people connect with you and support you?
They can go to my Instagram, which is prolife.spiderman, or they can go to antiabortionfront.org.
Awesome. Mason, keep up the good work, bro. I'm sure we'll see you very soon. We're grateful for you.
Thanks for having me on, Seth.
Yep. We'll see you soon. Thank you guys for tuning into the show today. Head on over to iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Give the show a rating and review. Support Mason. This guy's taken off. He is a viral figure now, and he's got more courage than most pastors in America. When YouTube eventually digitally assassinates me, go to Rumble and subscribe there and help us continue to get our message out. And if you want to join the fastest growing pro-life organization in America and get equipped for this fight, because you're the resistance, the people of God must rise again and resist this culture of death, go to thewhiterose.life, thewhiterose.life. And if you sign up as an ally at $35 a month, you get a battle box and our digital community with free resources and curriculum. And at $70 a month, you join our Books in the Barracks book club, where we read a book together once a month. We talk about it live on Zoom. Sometimes the author shows up. It's really cool. And to host a screening of my film, The 1916 Project, this summer, before it comes out in September online, The 1916 Project, go to the1916project.com, request a screening, or see screening dates so you can watch this film live and local before it comes out. We're changing the culture. We're equipping and mobilizing the church, and we're launching resistance all around the country so the people of God will tear down all the high places before it's too late. Thanks for tuning in today. Until next week, I'm Seth Gruber, and this is The Seth Gruber Show.